evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We have a great guest tonight, Mr. Dan Israel.
Hi.
Wonderful songwriter, 14 records out, plays all over town and has been for years. Recently, literally a couple of days ago, got back from a month tour of Germany. I've been following him on Facebook, and I wanted to get him in while these stories were still fresh in his mind. We're also going to be playing several tracks of his new record, You Are Free. But without any further ado, first of all, happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a perfect time to come back from Germany, no less.
Yeah, right.
To see my kids, and it's the joy coming back, especially at this time of year, is it's good to be home. It was a great trip. It's also good to be home.
Dan, I fortunately this isn't on television, but you do look a little road worried.
I looked at Paul. I looked in the mirror before I came over here, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be on the radio, so we're cool. But I look like a zombie.
You said I look like Metza.
I did not say that. I distinctly did not say that. But I don't. And I don't want to repeat too many stories I've already told on Facebook. Although they're all going to come down soon for my book.
Yeah.
But just last night, I went to bed. I often lie down. When my kids go to bed, I lie down too. And I fell asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night. And I'm sure you've probably had this happen when you've been touring, traveling a lot. But I had that panicky thing where I woke up and I had no idea where I was. And it took, even though I was in my son's room, I'd only moved into this house a little over a year ago, so maybe it's not that familiar, but I couldn't figure out where I was. And I had taken my kids to Europe earlier this year, so it wasn't ridiculous to think that maybe I was with my kids in Europe still or something. Mm-hmm. But it was so weird, and I guess I've been everywhere, man, lately.
That happened to me last week after a night at Grumpy's Northeast.
But that's another story. Well, that can happen after a night at Grumpy's.
Well, Dan, you and I have known each other. I believe we met in Austin, Texas.
We did.
Mid-90s?
93, I believe it was. 93. Maybe 94, but right in there.
Yeah, and over the years, and since we both ended up back in Minneapolis, played a lot of gigs together. You've always been so nice when I do my fundraisers for either the Northeast Seniors Food Shelf or my doggy fundraisers. You're always one of the first ones to sign on when you can. So
I'm honored.
Thank you.
We got to get you on my folk festival. We need to talk about that later, too. I have an annual St. Louis Park Folk Festival.
Oh, I would love to do that.
I haven't booked it for next year. I mean, I booked it, but we'll talk.
Sign me up.
Off air.
Dan Israel,
Mm-hmm.
you were, you were a prolific Facebook guy.
Where would I be without Mark Zuckerberg?
And you've got that great Woody Allen nervous Jew thing going on. So your
all
friends,
my neuroticism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we follow it along. But you're really good about telling exactly what's going on in your life. So I remember several months ago when you started talking about this tour, and you were even asking people, should I do this? Mm-hmm. And now here you are 1 month later. Tell us, where did it all start? When did you decide, I'm going to go to Germany?
Yeah, for years and years, I wanted to tour Europe. This has been something I've been trying to put together, usually getting absolutely nowhere with it. And I know there are ways that, for one thing, I had a day job all those years, so putting together a European tour was exceptionally complicated by trying to somehow shoehorn something in around a day job. I worked for the legislature all those years, but I quit the job last year, thus my album being called You're Free and all this. But
and then thus all the facts that all these lefty political beliefs that you've had undercover for years are finally coming to the fore.
It's all bubbling up like it was like magma kept underground, and it wasn't kept very well underground either, as most people would testify to. But so I played a show with Peter Himmelman actually earlier this year, and that he had borrowed a guitar and some.
Another great songwriter from St. Louis Park.
What is it about St. Louis Park, right?
Coen Brothers.
Between the Range and St. Louis Park.
Yeah.
You know, right? They're kind of places have magic. I think sometimes, right? Do you agree?
Absolutely.
So
for the record, for people out there in the Wall of Power radio audience, one of the connections that my guest Dan Israel and I have, his mother's from my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota.
And not only that, but my drummer Dave Russ's mother is from Virginia, Minnesota.
Really?
And we didn't figure this
that.
out till I don't even know. It should have been years ago that I think Dave knew, and somehow I didn't process it. But then it starts to be like, we don't want to talk about coincidences.
Yeah, take what you've gathered from coincidence, like the man said, right?
Right. So, so we have this Virginia, Minnesota connection, and
the Queen City of the Iron Range, I might add.
It is a beautiful, lovely place. Queen City, yes. So, Rob Genetic, who is a very exceptional producer, engineer, drummer, because of this show with Peter, and there was just some equipment we had to pass on between us after the show, we got together for coffee, and I had actually intention of the meeting, if there was one beyond just hanging out with Rob, was to talk about like licensing and placement of music. Everybody wants in on that. We talked about that stuff, and then the conversation veered at the end towards this tour company in Germany called Songs and Whispers that Courtney Yasmine had worked with, and that Rob plays with Courtney. And so Rob said, you should check it out, see what you think. And I thought, I should check it out. You're right. I mean, if they could put together a tour now, a lot of people want to know, like, how did I do on this, or was it worthwhile?
Well, we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, we can get to that. But anyway, it started to come together. I wrote to them, and it was just a process that kind of evolved over the next few months, and then it actually happened. And I actually went and played a lot of shows. Actually, shows got added to the schedule.
How many shows?
Well, I think there were something like 25, including radio and TV type thing, a promo, a couple record stores, something around 25 in 5 weeks. That's a pretty heavy schedule. I mean,
and you drove.
Including the driving, yeah.
Yeah, the driving was like you said last week on Facebook, it was like 6,000 miles or some ridiculous thing.
I drove 7,100 kilometers, which is like over between 4,000 and 5,000 miles. So I could have driven across the U.S. and halfway back.
Right.
I think with that or something like that. But
you would have ended up in Omaha,
that's true. I don't want to do that. My ex-wife is from Lincoln. I don't want to besmirch the good reputation of Nebraska.
The Cornhuskers.
Yeah, the Cornhuskers. So, it was. I've been trying to encapsulate some things about it, and it's very hard to encapsulate something this like momentous. There were all these firsts for me. It was my first, other than a trip that I took a couple months ago to Europe with my kids, which was a really special thing, and now also added to the weirdness that I've been in Europe for the half of the last 3 months now, but having never been there before. And the fact that, my first extended stay out of the country my whole life is in the country of Germany, which as a Jewish American with
heavy duty
ancestry, I don't need to explain why that would be a heavy thing. But it was really intense, and I had so many experiences that, like you, now I want to write a book or
Well, Dan,
album.
And we're going to have Dan Israel on, great songwriter, good buddy of mine for the whole show tonight. I'm going to be playing some of his music, but let's just start with getting it together. Now you're a single dad, and you got two young kids.
Yeah. So now a lot of people, and I've been really clear about this, like publicly too, how grateful I am to their mother, who she just volunteered to take. We are 50-50 custody. It's not a small thing to ask the other person to take the kids for a whole month.
Right.
And my parents helped out a lot too. But Lisa, my ex-wife, was awesome about it.
Although I met both your kids, and
they're not exactly like they're not demons. No,
they're really sweet.
Thank you. They're wonderful kids. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I agree. And they managed very well, having never been apart from their father for more than a week in their whole lives. I've never been away from them for more than a week. And that might not seem, if you're a parent of young kids and you've never been away from your kids for more than a week, and you go away to a foreign country for a month, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And so it came together. It actually happened. I got there. I it was like I had a day or two to sort of adjust, and then it was off, and I had to go to Belgium right at the beginning.
Wow.
And then Netherlands, and then I had to go to southern Germany. So the first part of the trip was a lot of driving and a lot of shows in a compressed span of time. There were periods of the tour that were a little less crazy where I was sort of back. I was based in Bremen, Germany, which is in northern Germany. I had like an apartment for the month, which was arranged through the tour.
Well, you know what, Dan? Hold on to that. Let's listen to one of your songs.
Yep.
Take a sip of water. Off Dan's new record, Dan Israel, You Are Free. We're going to end this set on the Wall of Power Radio Hour with Someday You'll Say.
Number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Waking up is easy when you look forward to breakfast. Served 7 days a week at the Downtowner Woodfire Grill in St. Paul. Try eggs your way with hash browns, bacon, or sausage. There are 4 delicious varieties of Eggs Benedict that should not be missed. And buttermilk pancakes, waffles, or French toast are always fresh off the griddle. How about a Bloody Mary or screwdriver from the bar? The Downtowner Woodfire Grill is located at 253 West 7th Street with plenty of free parking, or online at downtownerwoodfire.com.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
The holidays just snuck up on us, and you've waited and waited all year to clean. So don't put it off anymore. Call Zero Res. Not only will it look and feel amazing, it makes your home healthier to get rid of the bacteria, dust mites, and dander lurking in your carpet. So hurry and call before the holidays and get 3-room Zero Res clean starting at $139. And get $50 off when you clean dirt and dander's favorite hiding place, your air ducts. Call 952-ZERO-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com.
Expedition Journal, entry number 7. It's been a week since I entered this vast land called Big Buy Electronics in search of a digital camera. Today, I encountered several people calling themselves employees, but they only spoke of car stereos, knowing nothing of cameras. So I continued westward through endless forests of CDs and DVDs. By evening, I took refuge near some televisions to regain my bearings. I begin to wonder if this camera department is a myth. I should have heeded my colleagues and gone to National Camera. Their knowledge and customer service is the stuff of legend. But it is too late for me now. Tell my wife I love her.
At National Camera Exchange, our price guarantee means we'll match any local store or internet price any day of the week. And now during our holiday sale, the prices get even better. You'll even get free classes with any camera purchase. See store for details.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metzer. My guest for the whole night on the show, songwriter Dan Israel. Dan just came back from a 5-week tour of Germany, stopped into a couple other countries, and at the end of the last segment, he was telling us about how he started in Bremen. So what was it like, your very first gig?
Oh, so the very first gig was the show in Mechelen, Belgium, and I had read something. There was like a series of notes from other bands that have done the tour in the artist department, and they said something about just be aware when you GPS your way there, it might not get you quite there. Well, after I drove into a cow,
that's nice to know.
Not into a cow, but after I was like going down this one lane road, I got further and further from the town, and then I was unable to figure out where the place was, and I went into the wrong place, and a woman was a little unhappy with me for that. And then I got further up the road, and I got to the end of the road, and there was a canal and a footbridge. And I called. I could see the place, or what I thought was the place, across the road, and I had their phone number, so I got my cell phone out, and I said, I'm here. What do I do? And they said,
where's the road?
Yeah, where's the road? How do I get there? And they said, park your car there. There's a little spot. Oh, yeah, I said, I see it. And they said, walk over. And I said, what about the PA? No PA. Don't bring a PA. The room's tiny. Just come in and bring your guitar. We'll get you set up with food and some wine or whatever you want, and you'll play. And so that's what I did. I went over there, and I passed some cows along the way, and I went over the canal, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? And it was this gorgeous sunset, and I took pictures right there because, it's my first gig. And I get there, and it's just, they're so friendly and so nice. And they made this amazing spaghetti for me, and they're feeding me, giving me wine, and then it's showtime, and it's like, it's just this little room, and everyone's like, they're literally 6 feet from me. Some of them are 3 feet from me. I mean, I'm spitting on people when and they were so responsive and so into it. And this one family was just embracing me, like literally too. The kids were there, and I gave some T-shirts away, but people bought CDs and vinyl, and it was just this. It started off just fantastic.
So
it's hard to beat that show, actually. That was so great.
So the Songs and Whispers, the booking agencies, they were doing your marketing for you ahead of time too.
Exactly. I mean, you pay for everything. It's sort of a la carte, but they do a very good job of preparing. You don't walk into anywhere for the most part and not feel like this has been set up nicely, and I'm not. You see your own poster up, It's
right.
And they do this every month so that there's like a regular crowd that goes to some of the shows. Not everywhere, but they have a pretty good following for their whole series.
Well, and Dan Israel, my guest on the Wall of Power Radio Hour tonight, like all of us these days, and, since we really began, we all do our own marketing. So when somebody's doing a good marketing job for you, right?
I know how hard it is.
Right.
I actually told them that, and I don't think they necessarily hear it enough from other artists. They probably do from some, but I do get it. I do get it. I know how much goes into booking and promotion, and, it's not easy work. And so, yes, I'm acutely aware from all these years of DIY what DIY entails.
Right. Now, Dan, you had on some of these shows, you had a really interesting partner on the co-bill. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, he's going to be in the book a lot. And some things I'm not going to talk about right now. But
is some going to be heavily redacted?
Some will be heavily redacted. Now, what happened was I got the name of my tour partner. It wasn't every show. It was ended up being, I guess, about a fourth or a fifth of the shows were paired with Ben Lorentzen from Norway. And he lives in New Jersey now. And when I went on I was just curious, who is this guy? And I went on his website, and it said he's married to the daughter of Sun Myung Moon. And then
he's a Moonie.
He's a Moonie. I don't think they like that term, but so what? And by the way, it'd be remiss if I didn't point out right now that during the subsequent tour, despite me having dinner with Ben, hanging out before and after shows, drinks, all kinds of discussions about the music business, family, personal things, he never once mentioned that he was a member of the Unification Church, or that he was married to not just the daughter of Sun Myung Moon, but she's also the person who took over the entire worldwide church when Sun Myung Moon died in 2012.
What's he doing playing these little? I'm not saying. I'm not.
No,
denigrating the little kids,
I'm not offended at all. I wondered the same thing. Yeah. and I don't know how much people even know about this church, or some might say cult.
Right.
I think I would say cult from what I've read and seen, and you're familiar with, and we're on a sort of left-leaning radio station. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that Sun Myung Moon had a right-wing media empire and also funded right-wing military actions around the world, including
Where was he based
allegedly
again?
collaborating. Well, D.C. sort of, because I mean he's from South Korea.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But the Washington Times, I think that they lived in New York actually.
Okay.
But yes, he was from South Korea. He kind of came out of the Korean War thing, staunchly anti-communist, but to the point where he was willing to fund military coups in South America that were anti-communist, regardless of who was leading the anti-communist brigade, including in one of them, apparently in Bolivia, Klaus Barbie, the Butcher of Leon. So I had a little sour taste just from knowing all this.
Yeah,
and
3 glasses of wine later, I can imagine that conversation.
But you would think it would have loosened up to discuss these things, but it never did. And so yeah, but what I want to say is that I still tried to clear the slate before I went and not prejudge Ben.
Right.
And I think I did do that for the most part. I wanted to give him a chance. And yeah.
We've got so much to talk about, Dan, Israel, and I so thank you for coming down, because you really got back, 2 days ago?
Yeah, and I know I look a bit haggard, and I'm still waking up not knowing where I am and that kind of thing. I'm still jet lagged and all of that, but it's really also really cool to be here and to be able to talk about this stuff.
Well, I'm really enjoying it. I appreciate your time. We're going to end this set on the Wall of Power Radio Hour with a song by my guest Dan Israel off his great new record, You Are Free, called Soul Will Be Found. 2 more sets after this.
I've been a long time waiting around, been spinning my wheels and gaining no ground. Gonna finally get myself down to the place where my soul is found, to the place where my soul is found. I've been twisting myself into trying to split the queens in the yellow and blue. I'm gonna lose whatever I do. Find a place where my soul is due. Find a place where my soul is due. I've walked 1,000 miles on solid ground. Walked 1,000 more and circled round. Don't think I was born on Peter Bone. There must be a place I feel at home. I've been a long time.
Total Dog Company exists for people who are serious about their dogs. People who want the best nutrition and the best gear for their dogs. Total Dog Company's mission is to provide high-quality, practical food and gear for dogs, and only dogs. Nothing frou-frou or frivolous. Nothing with suspect ingredients. No cat food or wild bird food. Totally dog, from head to wagging tail. Find us in New Hope off of 169 at 9432 36th Avenue North and at TotalDogCompany.com.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Catch New Beginnings with Freddie Bell, Saturdays at 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Vacuum cleaners. You buy them, you break them, and then you throw them away, right? Well, if you're ready to break out of that vicious cycle, we have the answer. Ever heard of A1 Vacuum? They've been around forever, offering better alternatives. So if you're ready to stop filling the landfills, give A1 Vacuum a shot. Located in Roseville and ready to show you something better. Find them at a-1vacuum.com or call 651-222-6316. Better yet, drop by.
I'm Steve Conklin.
And I'm Jake DeRoff.
We're the hosts of the Mortgage Talk Show, Sundays at 12:30.
Steve, what are we going to talk about this week?
This week we talk about refi rejects, why so many people are getting turned down for refinances, the rebranding of the CFPB, is it really necessary, and the issues with DACA and why lenders aren't lending.
Check us out for more information and email us any questions at mortgagetalkshow.com.
Tune in to the Mortgage Talk Show every Sunday at 12:30 on AM 950.
Hi, this is Laura, and I want to tell you about my family's favorite thing. It's our wood stove. We bought it about 14 years ago from Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. And see, the wood stove has actually paid for itself because we can keep the main area that we live in toasty warm with this great moist heat. But more important than saving money, it has actually improved our lives. Having a fire simplifies life. It provides comfort. It sort of takes the chill out of winter.
I'm Peter Solak. In 1977, I started Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, and I experienced the simple joy of warming myself by a fire. I also realized that the place and the way we embrace fire has evolved in a diversity of forms and styles. So at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we have brought together the widest selection of our fireplace products and technical knowledge in the Twin Cities. Our mission is to use our knowledge to help you choose the design and function that is right for you and your home.
Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today and find the right fire for you.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Sam Turnberg. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low around 16. Tomorrow is mostly sunny with a high near 26. Monday, mostly sunny with a high near 26. Tuesday, mostly sunny with a high near 28. And Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 32. Shop local with one of the AM 950 advertisers for the holidays. It's a great way to not only support AM 950, but also local businesses and shops. Visit Electric Fetus or Common Good Books or see a full list of advertisers at am950radio.com.
Before started low, got a ways to go. Feeling better than I used to be. Every passing day, just a bit more free.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We just heard a little bit of my guest, Dan Israel's song, Feeling Better, off his new record, You Are Free. We're talking about his recent successful tour, 5 weeks over in Germany. That song that we just heard a little bit of, Dan, Feeling Better, that was a great song to open this set with because you've had a little stomach affliction for years.
Yeah. It's been like up and down, but when it's been down, it's taken me down at times, just with pain and just misery. And
what exactly is it?
Irritable bowel syndrome. Okay. I mean, technically, which doesn't mean anything really. It's sort of an umbrella term. But I've had stuff in my family. Other people have had issues like that. And there's obviously like a psychological stress-related component as well, a diet component and all these things. But it's a bit of a mystery. And unfortunately, I was feeling really good just on an upswing when I booked the tour of Germany and whatnot. And right the month before I left, I had a major flare-up.
Oh, man.
To the point where I was almost contemplating having to bail.
Wow.
I'm really glad I didn't. And then as soon as like I got ready to go, I don't know. This just testifies, I guess, to how much is psychological. But we don't like to say all in our head.
Right.
But I got better, and then the whole trip I was basically fine. I mean, you know, I had to watch what I eat and my stress levels. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear you were feeling good because you had to do a lot of driving. You're playing, and
that was why I was so worried. I looked at the itinerary and I was like, "Can I even pull this off if I'm feeling lousy?" I don't think I could have if I felt like I was, that month before.
Well, I don't, I don't think I could do a GPS and get to Mankato correctly. So
I got lost with GPS in a way that most people would not think was humanly possible. I would get to like within a block of the venue, but in Europe it's curious sometimes too. Like the GPS isn't able to zero in exactly on the spot because the streets are so weird, and driving there is just like an adventure anyway. I mean, between the crazy speeds on the Autobahn and the narrow streets in the cities, and
how fast do they go on the Autobahn?
I don't think that Americans who haven't really driven there are fully cognizant of what we're talking about when we say faster. I don't mean faster incrementally, and I'm not sure I even mean faster exponentially.
Right.
I mean bleeping faster. I would sometimes, so there are often 3 lanes, and the trucks go in the right lane, and they're going at about R70. It's hard because it's in kilometers per hour, but they're maybe going 70, 75 tops. And then the middle lane, you would think that would maybe be 90 or 100, but it sometimes is faster than that, and you got to get out of that lane.
Wow.
And then the left lane. Now, people will say, okay, yeah, they have high-performance cars, the roads are better, and people don't use their cell phones, they pay attention, they're focused on driving. All that's fine and good, but unless you're Mario Andretti, I don't know why you're driving 180 miles an hour, and they do.
Wow.
They do. In the fog and darkness and rain, too, which that is madness. That's madness.
I can't even imagine it. One question: Does the finger translate in universal language? Because I imagine that's happening all the time.
They're not big on the finger. What they're big on is coming up right behind you, riding your tail, flashing their brights, honking. They're not big on the birdie, but you know quite well when they're mad, and they seem to be mad a lot.
Well, it is Germany.
Yeah, and I would say too that sometimes I would be in that right lane behind a truck, right, and I would need to get around the truck, so I would check my mirrors. I would make sure I would be able to see a half mile to a mile behind me. I'd go, okay, I'm good. I can go. I'm gonna hit the gas, floor it, and get around this truck, and I'll be fine. No sooner would I be over one lane when there was still another lane for them to pass me on, that somebody invariably would come up behind me and be furious with me for even attempting to pass that truck. I am not kidding.
You ugly American, you.
There aren't words.
Well, whenever I've traveled, I always find, and I think, especially when you're going to new places, there's always trepidation about where you're going, especially if you're going to play. And I've done that, dozens of times over the years. But I've always found out, Dan, once I get to where I'm going, I'm supposed to have been there. And things only happen when you get there.
Yes.
So you had a lot of coincidences on your trip. And, of course, my favorite Bob Dylan line from It's All Over Now, Baby Blue is, take what you've gathered from coincidence. So what did you take from those coincidences?
Well, I just want to pull back, and, we were talking about this off air, too. I kind of have a spiritual feeling around coincidences. I think that they point to something, that they're trying to tell you something.
Obviously, yeah.
And
me too.
For me, it started off, I started having weird dreams as soon as I got there. In fact, I woke up from a couple dreams that were freaking me out in the apartment there, and a couple times I yelled out, "Who's there?" Like I thought I was having a dream about somebody intruding and all these things. But then the dreams started to become like come true or something, deja vu experiences. And just let me give you an example of a coincidence that I found really odd. This isn't necessarily supernatural. I don't know what to make of this, but at one point in the trip, and this was a few weeks in actually, I was driving and I I was trying to come up for a metaphor for how the trip was going, because I'd had some good experiences and I'd had some bad ones, and it was mostly good, but it was kind of going back and forth, and I wanted a visual. I was just searching for a visual image that encapsulated everything so far. What indicates back and forth or up and down, and I thought of a seesaw. Okay, so I had this very vivid, and I was carrying the image in my head. I was going to write down this whole thing about a seesaw, which I hadn't seen a seesaw the whole trip. I pull up at the club, I load my gear in, and I come back around this other car parked in front, and I stop dead in my tracks because there's two girls on a seesaw and it's going back and forth.
Wow.
And this kind of thing, this is what I'm talking about. It wasn't.
That almost sounds like something the German version of The Shining.
It was. There's got to be a German word for some of these, Gestalt or whatever. But several things like this. There were even ghost stories. I won't go into all of them right now, but there were things. But they piled up, and then there were these series of Bob Dylan-related coincidences that included, that the parishioners in the church at the end of the tour, some of them were named Hibbing because the guy who founded the town of Hibbing, Bob's hometown, was from the next town over, and just strange things like this. Izzy Young. When I went to Stockholm, it turned out Izzy Young, who was instrumental in Bob's early career in Greenwich Village, lives in Stockholm.
Right.
And
Izzy ran the Folklore Center on McDougal, where Dylan used to go and hang out. All those folkies used to hang out. That's where they used to get instruments, records, songbooks, meet each other. It was right in the middle of the street.
I think Izzy's in both Chronicles and No Direction.
Yeah, he was a very influential man in the late 50s and early 60s on the American folk scene.
Yep.
Dan, you also went to... Did you go to one of the death camps?
I went to, and some people might say, "Oh, well, that's not a death." I think any place where people died en masse from the Nazis is a death camp. The only difference is I went to Bergen-Belsen. It didn't have gas chambers, so I guess if that makes it somehow better.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And that's where Anne Frank and her sister, their bodies were found when the camp was liberated. They had died of typhus, and there's a memorial to them. There's all kinds of... I was basically there by myself. I had a show in a nearby town called Bad Vollingbostel. And Bad Vollingbostel actually had an offshoot of the camp during the war, too, so that was pretty heavy. But going around the camp by myself with no one else for an afternoon, and it was very quiet there. It's actually kind of in the middle of nowhere, and that you have to take 2-lane roads to get there. I mean, to their credit, they put the memorial and museum right. It's not... They didn't pretty anything up, really.
Right.
There is a museum, but I didn't spend much time in the museum. I spent the time walking around the camp, visiting the various spots where the barracks had been and all this stuff. And I bought some books in the bookstore later so I could contextualize it a little bit. But honestly, walking around the camp itself was what was intense, and I felt very strong emotions. And I also... I don't know if it's okay to say this, but I felt spirits. I felt that. I felt them. One of my friends said, "Were they sort of reaching out to you or something?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I would put it that way." I felt gratitude or something or I don't mean like I was doing some great thing, but I just mean that it was a benevolent thing. But I still kind of felt like I needed to get out of there at the end, badly. I was actually quite spooked.
I remember years ago. It was 2002. Or was it the end of... Yeah, I think it was 2002. I played out at the Stone Pony. And I was out in Manhattan for about 6 days, spending all my money, not sleeping much.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, on my last go-around, I hired this driver for the last few days that I got a really good deal on. I said, I want to take me down to a Ground Zero. And when I look back on it, I was having... visions. I could feel spirits.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was from fatigue or what was actually going on, but I went into a entirely different zone.
That I think you and I were talking about places having character. Sometimes it's magical, sometimes it's much darker, but there's definitely something there in that place. And I just wanted to tell you that there's a memorial to the Jewish victims of Bergen-Belsen, and I stopped in my tracks because this is what it said at the top in big letters. It said, "Earth conceal not the blood shed on thee."
Wow.
And I don't know. That alone just kind of made me like, I just stood there and stared, and I couldn't move. I don't know. That was just so powerful. So,
Dan Israel, I really appreciate you going deep with that, and I did want to talk about it. But we are going to end on a little more positive note. Hey, Dan, if you don't mind.
All right.
Off your new record, You Are Free, Dan Israel. Title track called You Are Free. We'll be back with Dan Israel for one more set on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
All in the sky can be yours. You got to hear in the best indoors. After you tried out all the cures, you're free. No one can tell you what to do. After the trials you fell into, you don't have a clue what they ain't been through or seen. Now you get to say what you wanna be. Nobody else can change your destiny. You can drag these chains around in this day. You can let them be. Nobody knows what you felt inside. You were along for the lonely ride. How you emerged with your pride.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Standard Heating knows the holidays are a time for lists. Shopping lists, guest lists, good and naughty lists. But don't forget about the most important list of all, Standard's 24-point checklist that comes with our professional furnace tune-up. During December, you can get this crucial tune-up for $25 off. Learn how you can save $25 on our furnace tune-up and all our other year-end deals today at standardheatingdeals.com/radio. Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, comfort you deserve.
Tune in for Philosophy Talk, the program that questions everything except your intelligence. Coming up, Foucault and power. Power can be used for positive social ends. That's good. But it can also be used for control. That's bad. But resistance is always possible. That's good. But resistance is also part of power. Oh, come on. Foucault and power, next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. on AM 950.
Toyotathon is on. Get over to Rudy Luther Toyota for huge Toyotathon discounts. Rudy Luther is one of the largest volume Toyota certified pre-owned dealers in the U.S. They have the right cars in the best condition at the Rudy Luther Toyota fair value price. And Rudy Luther needs more cars and trucks to sell. So right now, you can get a great Rudy Luther Toyota we buy price on your vehicle. Go to RudyLutherToyota.com for all the Toyotathon deals. Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, this is Laura Headland. Check out Food Freedom Radio anytime on podcast. We've had some fun shows this fall. We had Brian DeVore with Wildly Successful Farming. We had the president of the Minnesota Farmers Union. We played clips from the Governor's Forum, so we had the whole show with Tim Walz. And then we'll be talking with IATP on the Update NAFTA plan. So tune to Food Freedom Radio live Saturdays at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast at am950radio.com.
Hi, this is Jen of Vandalia Glassworks in St. Paul. We're an independent glass studio celebrating the art of making beautiful glassworks. This ancient skill of creating art from fire is something you can learn to do through the Blow Your Own Glass class classes. Learn to make an elegant glass paperweight, and advanced classes will teach you how to make tumblers and other pieces of art. Consider giving the gift of experience during the holidays. Sign up with friends and family to create artistic glassworks together. More at VandaliaGlassworks.com.
Welcome back to the last set of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. I'm your host, Paul Metzer. My guest for the whole show tonight, Mr. Dan Israel, just came back from a 5-week tour of Germany. Dan, we ended the last set with some pretty heavy stuff, but this tour must have affected you on several levels.
I'm still trying to process it all. One thing is that, my family fled Europe. My ancestors, my great-grandparents fled Europe, persecution of Jews, not Germany, but they may have actually gone through Hamburg or Bremen as the ports of departure, and I'm still trying to figure that out. But they fled, and here I am going back to being so close geographically to where all my roots are. And I don't know, again, it's sort of like I felt it calling out to me at times, and there was this experience where this guy, I was playing a show in the Netherlands, and a guy said he saw spirits on stage with me, and then later on I thought about the description he gave, and it sounded like my grandparents, the ones I knew, and just all over the place. I just felt like the past was everywhere. Right. How could I not? Right. My own not my own past so much as my family's and my people's. So, and it became. There just was no way for me to avoid that subject in my mind. I've studied it my whole life, and so I would engage in conversations with people. I would try to gauge their level of comfort or discomfort with it. Sometimes I would plunge ahead regardless. Right. Sometimes that wouldn't work out so well, but I didn't have anything go horribly awry with that. I just would have to eventually back up. But then there were people who wanted to talk about it and bring up their own memories. There was a guy who'd been to Israel, and he'd been called a Nazi in Israel, and he was actually quite pro. He went there to he wanted to go to Israel, and it made me a little sad, he was kind of trying to be supportive of Israel, and yet the bitterness is so intense that if a German person goes there sometimes, it doesn't work out very well. Wow. There's all these stories and all these things that I'm going to be processing for a long time, but it was... and then, then there's just the touring and the making new fans, making new friends.
Let's talk about that because
that was the point of the trip. Right. I'm going into the history.
You got to have some fun too, right?
Oh, it was. I had
do a little rock and roll
fun.
Yeah.
And I was solo acoustic, but I rocked out as much as I could, and I played some really fantastic shows in churches, different kinds of venues, and
you did a lot of radio.
I did some radio spots. I did a TV thing outside of Bremen. There was this big write-up on me, and that was actually the town where the Hibbing guy came from. There was this amazing write-up, but I was just kind of blown away sometimes by just how surreal it was seeing Dan Israel in Germany, like a thing. It wasn't like everybody in Germany was aware I was there or anything, but it still had sort of an impact, and I think it went both ways. I think that it left an impact both ways.
Tell us one more coincidence about the piano.
My grandmother was supposed to teach Bob Dylan piano lessons, and
somebody did, because that's all he's playing now on tour. And I know. I love his piano playing.
I love it too. But apparently the story is that his brother David was a little better at piano, and my grandma did give David some lessons.
It's funny, if you don't mind me jumping in here, Dan.
No, not at all.
I did 4 episodes on Wall of Power TV on the Dylan reissue of Blood on the Tracks, More Blood, More Tracks. Mm-hmm. David Zimmerman put those boys together in 1974 to do what became half of the record. Yeah. Last week I had Brian Bart on, whose grade school music teacher was David Zimmerman, and now this is the third show where David comes up.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Take
And
what
Bob
you've
only
gathered.
has one sibling.
Right.
I mean, and he's still alive, and it's cool. I mean, so I was talking at a show about this whole issue of Bob and piano lessons from my grandmother and all this. And then the next show I walked into, and I'd been having a spiraling series of Bob Dylan related coincidences, which we can't lay out all right now. But I walk into the next show in Bremen, and there's a piano there. I'm like, oh, cool, a piano. I flip open the piano, and it says right across the front of the piano, Zimmermann. And I'm just like, well, blow me down. What is going on here, universe?
And you're sure, put your hand on whatever's going to make you honest, that it wasn't the Brennivin that you had been drinking.
No, I hadn't. As yet, I hadn't.
We have another thing in common, because when Sonny and Earl and I went to Reykjavik, Iceland in 1999, we were introduced to Brennivin, which is, I compare it to a cross between really a cheap vodka, or a really cheap Jägermeister and turpentine. They refer to it in Iceland as Black Death, and you discovered it over there.
And so, and I don't know how much time we have, but just briefly, I had some open days at the end of the tour. A show got canceled, and I'm a free man. I can go anywhere. And my friend Joel Bramer lives in Stockholm, and he lived here for a brief time about 10 years ago. And he's an amazing violin player, and I just sort of jokingly said, Joel, I could drive up there in 12 and a half hours. As it turned out, it was more like 18 and a half hours to get up there. But I did. I went up there, and we had a little house concert, and Joel plied me with some Brannivin. And then I had some really kooky dreams on the way back from Stockholm, where I thought German customs officials had stolen my money, and it was so vivid. And
it's like absinthe, really.
It is wormwood. I think there might be something similar to wormwood.
Right.
So I didn't see trolls and fairies, but it's similar.
Dan Israel, we got about a minute left on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. So tell us, now that you are back in St. Louis Park, reunited with your lovely family, where you're playing, where can people get your records, and what is your website?
Okay, first of all, my website is www.danisraelmusic.com.
Spell Israel.
DANISRAELMUSIC.com, or you can just Google me. I have a pretty busy schedule coming up. I was going to try to scale back how much I play in town, but I have a show at the Tavern Lounge in Northfield, Saturday, December 8th. I'm playing at the Hudson Hop and Barrel Brewery on the 13th. With my friend Tommy Bentz. I'm playing at Flat Earth Brewing on the 14th, Friday the 14th. That's in St. Paul. And there will be all kinds of stuff, too.
Well, they can find all that out on your website?
Yeah, and my record is at all the local stores. It's also on vinyl. So the Fetus, all these places, has the record and the CD. So go pick it up. I would appreciate that.
2 suggestions. You should write up all of these stories about your trip to Germany. Excuse me, on... submit it to MinPost. And when you do your book, is it 2 on PC to, can I suggest a title?
Yeah, go ahead.
Temple Israel.
That's hilarious.
Dan Israel, thanks for your time.
Thank
Good
you,
to see you.
Paul.
Made it back in one piece.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to be back, and thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This show was produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brett Johnson. Follow me around, buy some of my records at paulmetza.com. I also have a great New Year's Eve show coming up. We'll keep you posted on that. Thursday nights at Shaw's with Willie Walker, 5 to 7, 16th and University. Wednesday nights with Sonny Earl, the Green Lantern of St. Paul. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.